Another blown opportunity for Indiana basketball. This time was in Eugene, and this time could lead to missing the NCAA tournament.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers. If you're here every day, Monday through Friday, for this podcast that is free to you, Monday through Friday, thank you so much. We've got a lot to go over on the show today. Some football recruiting buzz that we need to get to. A couple of names you need to know about as Indiana keeps stacking the list for 2026. Plus, what does the loss for Indiana basketball mean? That's right, the one that we're talking about right now. Indiana falls to Oregon 73-64. Our first trip to Eugene, and it was not a successful one. And it's just another game to add to the list of close calls, missed opportunities, blown games, whatever you want to call it, however you would like to categorize this. It's all true because Indiana had a lead with under 2 minutes to go thanks to a Trey Galloway three, had every opportunity to get a quad one win on the road in the Big Ten against an Oregon team that I think you could all see was a very good squad. And we talked about this yesterday with the host of Locked On Ducks, Spencer McLaughlin, great friend of mine. We talked about how this was going to be a good game. And I think it was. I think it was very entertaining throughout. Of course, Oregon pulls away late with some free throws down the stretch. And yeah, remember how I said Indiana had a lead with under 2 minutes to play, thanks to the Galloway three, who had a great game, by the way? Yeah, we didn't score after that. We just said, we're good. We didn't score. We literally did not make another bucket from that moment on. Oregon hit some free throws, and they win the game by 9. That score doesn't tell the whole story. I think we lost by about 3 or 4, but it doesn't really matter because a loss is a loss. And the Hoosiers had a chance to get their final quad one win in the regular season. And we have more conversations. There are more conversations for you and I to have in the next several days about the Big Ten tournament and whether I think they're going to respect our wins in that place or not. So that's why this was so important. That's why I told you this was the game you needed, because this was your last true chance to get a respected quad one win. And you played well enough to do it, I think. Yes, you only put up 64 points offensively on the road in the Big Ten. That's not really going to get it done. But you hold an Oregon team that's a pretty good shooting team to just 73 points. Yeah, you got beat on the boards. Yeah, they outscored you by 10 in second chance points. Crazy what that number adds up to if that were just less than that. Interesting. So you get outscored by 10 in second chance points, and they didn't make a ton of threes, but my goodness, when they did, they made them at crucial times. A lot of them came in the first half. Only one of their 6 came in the second half, and it was the Shellstad three from half court, basically. I mean, that dude was 2 steps across the line, did the mellow ball point to the floor, and let it fly. And I was like, what in the world is he doing? Our boy Spencer and I were texting during the game, and he said, I'm not joking when I knew that was in when it left his hands. And he absolutely buried it. And so Oregon only makes 6 threes in the game. They were 6 of 25. We were 9 of 25. That's great for us. That is incredible. We hit some big time threes. Mentioned the Trey Galloway three several times. Mackenzie Mbako had a couple in there. You even had Cannon Carlisle come off the bench and hit a couple of threes. Like, this game was kind of drunk. It was kind of crazy there for a little bit. But at the end of the day, we couldn't get stops. We couldn't get rebounds, and we couldn't get stops. Rebounding in general, you get beat 43-36 Offensive rebounds, they grabbed just a couple of more, right? Turnovers weren't bad. You had 10, they had 9, right? We had 10, Indiana did. Oregon had 9 points off those turnovers. You get outscored by 4. Fast break points, you got outscored by 3. Points in the paint, we did our job, right? We scored 32. Half of our points came from the paint. Basically, the other half came from the three-point line because you scored 27 there. But there's one more stat that I think we should talk about. And Mike Woodson kind of already talked about it for us. It's the free throw differential. Oregon goes 19 of 21 from the free throw line in their own house, by the way. Let's just make that very clear. Indiana, 3 for 7. 3 for 7 from behind the free throw line, at the free throw line, I should say. What are we doing? How is that physically possible from several standpoints here? I'm not one that I want to hop on and yell and complain about officials very often. They were not good in this game across the board. There were several fouls on both teams that did not get called, but there were several possessions defensively for Indiana where I don't know how a blocking call was made. I don't know how it was a block and not either a play on or an offensive foul. I don't know what you were supposed to tell some of these guys on some of those fouls. What are you supposed to do? I thought we were in great position. You get called for the bump, and shout out to Oregon who made their free throws. Some of those down the stretch to pull away, yes, but they made their free throws, and we did not. We did not. You had Malik Reneau, who had a chance to cut into the lead right before half. Clanked it. Didn't make it, right? But I feel for a team like Indiana that goes to the paint, that scores in the paint, that starts their offense, that runs their offense through the painted area with 2 big guys, which we ran some more different rotations in this game, which I don't know why. More on that in a second. But for a team that runs their offense through the paint, I think it's downright impossible for us to only have 7 free throws in a 40-minute basketball game. I put a lot of that on Indiana because we couldn't get to the rim and we weren't getting fouls and looking for contact. But man, I put that on the officials. It's impossible to only shoot 7 free throws in a basketball game. For a team like Indiana who plays as physical, for a team like Oregon who plays as physical as they did down low, we were robbed on the free throw differential here. Now, if we had 14 free throws instead of 7, would we made them? I don't know. The way stats would say no. Stats would say no, we wouldn't. But man, give us a shot. Give us a chance. And that was a big part of this game. But at the end of the day, the Hoosiers still had chances to win it. We still had opportunities to seal the deal and get another big win. And the story of the Mike Woodson era, especially in his farewell season, is he just couldn't get it done. Indiana falls on the road to Oregon 73-64. But what does this mean? Could we miss the tournament because of this result? We'll talk about that coming up next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made from skilled or for the skilled trades. Supply House, whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need some help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5, that's SH5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com today, supplyhouse.com today. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers, your daily spot for all things Indiana athletics. And thank you so much for making that so. We got some football recruiting buzz coming up in just a little bit, so be sure that you hang around for that. And if you're listening on audio, right, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, however you use an audio podcasting service to listen to us, thank you so much for doing that. And we really do appreciate that. And so, as I tell you all the time, make sure you're following us. You have those notifications turned on. Leave us those 5-star reviews. Share it with your family and your friends, man. We are growing like crazy, and I want everybody to be a part of it. If they watch Indiana, they need to be a part of this podcast. We're the only one that posts every single day and talking all things Hoosiers. So be sure that you get them involved on your audio platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, right, if you watch the videos every single day, you know the drill. Like the video, hit that thumbs up button, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments. I know you got them. I know you've got thoughts on Indiana losing this game to Oregon last night, plus the game coming up against Ohio State, which we'll kind of get into just a second. So do all of that for me. And if you haven't already, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. It's free, it's easy, and you become an everydayer. You'll get notified when new episodes get posted. And hey, wanted to shout you guys out. We're at 4,800 subscribers now. So thank you for that. And guess what? We're on to 49. I really do appreciate you being a part of it. So you lose a game like this, again, for Indiana, right? You lose to Oregon 73-64. You look up and down all the stats, and there's nothing other than the free throws and the second chance points, nothing that just jumps off the page at me is like, oh my gosh, there it is. That's why you got crushed in the game. I mean, both teams shoot nearly 40% from the floor. Indiana shoots better from the three-point line. We made a few more, which doesn't normally happen. Turnovers were even. Rebounds, yeah, they kind of hurt you, but it wasn't by 15 or 20, right? I mean, we were in the ball game. We just got stagnant on offense a lot because we went back to old rotations that I thought we had gotten completely away from, including Malik, Reneau, and Oumar Ballo on the floor at the same time. Cannon Carlisle got in this game, which he hit some shots, so I really don't have a whole lot of complaints on that. And Trey Galloway had a fantastic game. And it's pretty simple for this Indiana squad. You tend to win some games when Trey Galloway plays well. You obviously didn't win this one, but without Trey Galloway, you don't even have a chance in this game, right? Galloway goes for 16. He's your leading scorer, 7 of 14 from the floor. Yes, he hit 2 for 4 from deep, but he was also aggressive getting to the basket, had 4 assists, had 3 turnovers. That's one thing Trey's going to do. He's going to turn the ball over. But the problem was, you only had one other scorer in double digits, and it was Oumar Ballo, who played 30 minutes and I think played a good game, also had 12 rebounds, was also just getting whacked every time he went up for the basketball. But where else are you going to get scoring from? And on the road, man, 64 points is not acceptable. Not acceptable at all. 8 points from Mbako, 6 points from Goody, 8 points from Reneau off the bench, by the way. 8 points from Cannon Carlisle, which you cannot rely on every single night. So, man, take those out, and this game's not even close. You've got to have your big-time scorers step up. Malik's got to be better. Mbako's got to be better. Luke Goody has got to be better. Just 2 for 5 from downtown, 2 for 6 from the floor. You got to make more shots. And now, unfortunately, in your last quad one opportunity, Indiana blew it. Again, we did exactly what we do all the time. We blew a winnable game. Not scoring after taking a lead with 1:58 to play, not scoring a single point after that is unacceptable to me. That's a team that doesn't belong in the NCAA tournament if you're going to do something like that. But I do think overall, watching this game, until that moment, we looked like an NCAA tournament team. We looked like we belonged on the same floor as what most people are saying is a 5 or 6 seed right now in the Oregon Ducks. We had every opportunity to win. If that's on a neutral site, maybe we do. If it's an Assembly Hall, I feel like we probably do. But you've got to find ways to win games like that. And the problem is, in terms of missing or making the tournament, recency bias is a real thing. And I hate that it is, but it is. And some would argue that it should be, right? The NCAA Tournament Committee How much are they going to look at a win over Michigan State? That was, by the time Selection Sunday comes around, would have been several weeks ago. How much are they going to look at a win over Purdue? Or are they going to focus on your loss to Oregon in the midweek in what was a really good game that most people were watching side by side with Ohio State and Nebraska, which was an instant classic, unbelievable game. Ohio State by 3 in double overtime, both teams hit triple digits. I mean, that game was insane. Two big-time bubble teams going at it, and Ohio State probably just got themselves a little bit more comfortable. More on that in a second, too. But, man, if you're Indiana, how many times can you just come up short? How many times can you just miss an opportunity like this? Problem is, you're not going to get very many more, because that game against Ohio State, even though they beat Nebraska, it's still not going to be a quad one opportunity because you're playing it at home. Their net ranking's not high enough for it to be considered a quad one game at your home floor. If you were in Columbus, it'd be a quad one game. Same thing with Oregon. That's why this was a quad one opportunity. So Indiana now, we're asking ourselves the question, where do we stand? What's our status? Some people had us in the last 4 in. Some people had us completely off the bubble, right? I think we're back on it. I think we're back on the bubble. And here's what's crazy is a win over Ohio State this coming Saturday may or may not give you any credit, right? But a loss may just take you completely out. And that's why the Ohio State game is now your most important one. But this Oregon win would have washed that away. The Oregon win would have given you your 5th quad one win of the season, and there would be almost no doubt that you would be an NCAA tournament team. And so what does it mean? It means now Ohio State, you got to win. And then who knows in the Big Ten tournament? Who knows? Depends on who we get matched up against, I guess. And depends on if the tournament committee wants to respect a win or two in the Big Ten tournament that we will be a part of, talking about Indiana, of course. So it's just painful, man. And I worry that if we get in a tight game with Ohio State, who will probably have some confidence on Saturday, or we get in a tight game in that first round of the Big Ten tournament, or by the grace of the Lord above, if we get into a tight game in the first round of the NCAA tournament, I don't know what team we're going to get in the final minutes. We asked what team shows up, right? We asked what team on yesterday's episode, which team was going to show up for Indiana. We showed up ready to go. We played passionate. We played with high energy, high effort for most of the game. And I still think we played good enough to have a chance. And we did. We just didn't play good enough to win down the stretch. That's what scares me about a game this Saturday, a game in the Big Ten tournament, or a game in the NCAA tournament. So right now, I don't feel comfortable with us being in. I think you need a win over Ohio State. Some people will make the argument that you still need to win in the Big Ten tournament. And I don't think that can hurt your chances by any means if you're Indiana, since you weren't able to get it done on the road at Oregon. All right, coming up in our final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers, we got some football recruiting buzz we need to talk about. A couple of names you need to keep your eye on and keep your ears open for, because Curt Cignetti and the boys just keep going after dudes. We'll talk about who they are coming up next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers. And hey, quickly, if you're looking for some more things to watch, some more things to listen to here as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we've got tons and tons of shows. You've seen and heard so many of our team-centric shows. Obviously, Indiana, we've got Oregon, we've got Washington, Ohio State. I mean, we've got a ton around the Big Ten and around college athletics, but we also have shows that cover college athletics as a whole. If you're into college basketball, which I'm sure you are watching and listening to this show, check out Locked On College Basketball. Andy Patton, Isaac Shade, they do a daily show talking the biggest news in college basketball. And then our guy Spencer McLaughlin, he does the Locked On Ducks show, and we don't hold that against him, but he also does Locked On College Football, and he does an incredible job there too. So check those shows out every single day. That's a big rotation. Add in Locked On Big Ten, and there's 2 hours of your workday. Boom, gone just like that. The boss will have never even know. So add those to your rotation, man. Those guys would all really appreciate it. Audio, video, however you get this one, you can get those the same way. So be sure you check those out, a part of our Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so some football recruiting buzz for Indiana football, and a couple of names that I want you to know. We're going to get our guy Brian Smith, our Locked On recruiting expert and host of the Portal. You can check that show out as well. Just type in the Portal Locked On. You should be able to find it that way. We're going to get him on here soon to talk about some of these guys, some newer names, and some names we've already discussed. He's been sending me some videos of some dudes that you're going to want to see and you're going to want to hear him talk about. So he'll be joining us soon, maybe this week, maybe early next week. I'm not sure exactly, but we're going to get him on soon. But a couple of names that you need to know in terms of 2026, one on the defensive side and one on the offensive side. We'll start with a defensive lineman who got offered by Indiana. This was reported by 247. It was kind of picked up from there. It is a 2026 defensive lineman in Logan Nagel, who is a New Jersey native. He plays football up there right now. He is from Wayne, New Jersey in the class of 2026. The D lineman picked up an offer from Indiana. 6'5", 250 pounds, holds offers from places like Indiana, now Rutgers, Boston College, and some others. This is a prime example of someone who is picking up steam as they go. He doesn't have any star ratings and he's not on any of the boards or anything like that yet. But people are starting to take notice of a guy like Nagel. And it's because of his size and his speed. And there's not a ton of film, I'm going to be honest with you, not a ton, but I think he's somebody out of state that Indiana is going to prioritize and just try to start making relationships in other areas. I mean, since when does Indiana go to New Jersey to recruit for football? Doesn't happen very often. We've gone there for basketball, obviously, but football is a different story. And so it's another example of the Hoosiers going out and making ground, right? Pitching a 10 and just trying to get to work in other states other than Indiana, knowing that the talent here is great, but you got to get to other places. So again, early in the process, I think he'll get more offers. And hopefully, we've talked to Brian about this type of thing too, where you get on them early and you hope that they remember that and you hope that they value that and you hope that they might just honor that as well. And a guy like Logan Nagel, again, 6'5", 250 pounds on the defensive line from New Jersey, is somebody that you need to keep an eye on. The other is a receiver from right here at home in the Hoosier State, a guy as a 3-star receiver who was committed to Penn State. All of a sudden, he just committed. Listen to this. Jerquaden Guilford was a 3-star receiver from right here in Indiana in Fort Wayne, who's been committed to Penn State for some time. He has since decommitted from Penn State. He's 6'2", 190 pounds. This kid can ball out. And again, he's right here at home. Teams that are in the mix for Guilford, according to sources, this was a 247 article. Pitt, Tennessee, Indiana, and Ohio State are the ones that you need to keep an eye out for Jerquaden Guilford. Again, his number 6'2", 190 pounds. He's a 3-star rated receiver from here in Indiana, plays at Northrop High School. Again, teams Ohio State, Indiana, Tennessee, and Pitt. It is saying, or I guess they are saying, that Penn State will still be considered in this recruitment. So keep that in mind. So you're talking 5 big time programs and Indiana's involved. Could you imagine the waves and the shock waves it would send throughout the recruiting world if Indiana is able to get a guy who was committed to Penn State, who's considering others from Ohio State and Tennessee, and you get him to stay home and come to Bloomington and be a receiver at IU? Could you imagine? That would be so huge for Curt Cignetti and this entire coaching staff to be able to pull that thing off. Is it technically a flip? No, because he decommitted, but it's a major win if you're able to get Guilford, who I think is a rising star. I think he's a really good player and is only going to get bigger, faster, and stronger. And if Tennessee and Ohio State and Penn State are after this guy, he's going to be really, really good. And so Indiana's in the mixture there. Keep an eye out on that. All right. Jerquaden Guilford, again, Jerquaden Guilford, the Indiana high school receiver. He holds offers from Georgia, too, is on that list, but I don't think they're really in the mix here. Decommits from Penn State, and he's got Indiana in the mix for a 2026 receiver. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. I cannot say that enough, how much it means to me for you to listen, watch, support this show, however you do that. And be sure, if you're on YouTube, man, we post different polls every day. We try to get some of those shorts out there every day, like the shorter clip videos. We try to do that as much as we can. So keep track of all of that. Follow us on X at Locked On Hoosiers. However you want to interact, we really do appreciate you, okay? We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.